Hello everyone, a very good evening to all of you. So today we're going to discuss about this language and pedagogy. Yeah? So the next unit that is of primary concern to us. Yeah? So we have good evening JRF Pallavi. So far we have covered Indian writing and English in India, also a rapid fire on literary criticism and theory. Yeah. So if you haven't been through all those sections, good evening Rani, good evening. So if you haven't been through all those sections, I would request every one of you to kindly watch those lectures, and quickly brush up all those key facts and theories that are worth to remember when we talk about this NTA, UGC, NET and GRF examination. So when we talk about this topic, okay, so before we proceed further, quickly tell me here through your comments, JRF Pallavi, Sunita ma'am, good evening, and Rani, everyone, how's your preparation going on so far? How much syllabi you have been able to cover up? How much? Please do let us know so that we can also prepare accordingly. Still, how much we all need to work more on. So quickly tell me about your preparation, your strategy that you have been through all these days. Yeah, quickly. It's on process. Okay. So very good. It's on process. Kindly do proceed in that way only. That will help us in order to be on track. So this topic, very much interesting topic, this language, basic concepts, theories and pedagogy. And there is something about this English. Just hold on for a second. Quickly, just hold on for a second. So this topic, this language, this English, there is something about this language. Sunita ma'am says I am also in the process. Kindly proceed towards that process, very much important. Now there is one thing. Good evening Prashant, good evening. There is one thing about this. Try to take revision every day, whatever you teach. Definitely if you are doing that, then I must say that definitely you will hopefully you will be able to qualify that next examination that is scheduled to be happen sooner or later, let's say in June, July or any time. So prepare accordingly. Now if we talk about this interesting word that you can see here, this word English. Now what's so special about this English, that so far we have covered I think around 3 to 4 lectures, and every time this concept of English emerges out of nowhere. So what is this concept about English that is of concern in today's class? And now when we talk about, remember that English in India, when we talked about that particular topic, we also talked about writers, for example, like Braj Kachru, who very much focuses upon the idea of expanding circle, inner circle, outer circle, expanding circle. We have talked in terms of how English as a language emerged out of, let's say, from inner circle, that is native part, that outer circle where English is not an official language but is kind of used as an assistance language, and the third part, that is, we can say, that expanding circle where the language is neither official nor widely used or assistive language, rather a kind of language that people uses in their day-to-day life. So these kind of definitions we have, I think, talked about in terms of English. So you can also notice that since English is such a widespread language, it also needs to be, it also needs to be bifurcated, like, sprinkling over the minds of people. Now that sprinkling has a lot of dimensions, we can say here. For example, like writers like Nwagi Thiongo, heard about this writer Thiongo. Yeah, he famously worked upon that work where he pronounces that how in a decolonizing the mind. Yeah, so this famous work in which he tried to talk about that how English as a language has also colonized this psychological well-being of a person. Now when we talk about this psychological, yeah, good evening everyone. So when we talk about this psychological well-being or the psychological domination, we talk in terms of how English as a language also emerged, or we can say carries with itself the idea of the supremacy. Yeah? So the idea related with supremacy is not so much alien, rather it emerged in India only on that ground. In particular, for example, those who will learn this English language will be a part of that administration, number one. Number two, those who will learn this English language will be called Babu. In Bengali, we have seen about that notion, that how Babu English, a particular firm associated with those persons who were from Bengal, who are from Bengal, newly emerged middle class, we can say, who are very much fluent using that particular language. So these kind of theory we have discussed in our English in India. So this English also is imparted according to the kind of audience that it has. Now when we talk about this English as a lingua franca, it means English as a globalized language. Then English has been used and is being widely used in order to communicate, in order to converse with each other. This process of globalization, the process of interaction, the interaction and in that exchangement of culture, values. For example, in modern world, very famous example, since for let's say last night I was scrolling through that Instagram page where one important fact was there, interesting fact was there, let's say, that three Hollywood actor also embraced Hinduism. Yeah, Will Smith, for example, they all embraced Hinduism. So these kind of cultural transfer are also possible due to this kind of language, the language of English, which functions as a kind of common ground, the ground which will help an individual in order to relate himself with the wider audience that is there. Now when we talk about this English as a wider audience, now we also talk in terms of all those limited terms that also language carries itself with. Now for example, language can be a language can be constrained according to the geography, according to the culture. For example, native language, when we talk about it, for example, when in this unit, let's say when we will talk about that what is Pidgin, what is Creole. Yeah, so in that sense we will also look upon the fact that how also at the same time language though carries all those cultural phenomenon, but those borrowing from that precedent always is constrained within the boundaries of the limitations of the usage of language. Now so when we talk about these limitations, English as a language always tried to surpass those boundaries of limitations. That's why famous theorists, for example, like Noam Chomsky, Skinner, they all tried to understand how language functions within the human mind. Now later on, through various methods, for example, we have famous tests like IELTS, IELTS. We have these famous tests, for example, just in order to check the efficiency of an individual, whether he is eligible for that particular geography or not, for which he is applying to or he is trying to move towards. Yeah, this cultural transformation when we talk about, yeah, TOEFL, TOEFL. So these kind of tests are also there in order to test the accessibility of a person that is there, that is in English language. That is also a part of this English language, and the word that you will see here, this pedagogy. What is pedagogy? Pedagogy is a way, we can say, through understanding all those knowledge that are out there, through creating, let's say, by creating it, by critically examining it, and upon critical examination always try to develop a new phenomenon, new perspective. That's why English is used, as we can say here, in the most part of the world. Yeah, so in English in India, a particular topic that we have specifically focused upon, that how English as a we can say result of all those colonial encounter, that encounter that led to the emergence of that language, which also helped in India as a colonized country, colonized geography, also were able to identify itself with the world. For example, we have seen in our, let's say, Indian writing in English as well, that how these culture were transmitted, and through those inspiration, through that parallel study of British literature that is out there, Indian literature evolved itself out of that form, and later on developed through all those forms, and from there we have departed towards the postmodern writing in English. So English has its history according to the context in which it is always examined. That's the form, that's the theory that we are gonna understand in this particular topic: language, basic concepts, theories, and pedagogy. English in use. Everyone clear till now? Quickly say yes or no. Was it a quickie introduction that we are going to cover in this classroom? Everyone? So batch life candidate, these lectures in detailed way, since we are limited by time by this camera, we are limited, so we cannot explain you I think in an extensive way. But I would request everyone, those who are in batch life, kindly go through that video that is there, that will be made available by, I think, tomorrow. Please go through that for a deeper understanding, and also from that portion where the question can be asked in our examination, that most prominent part which we always discuss. So I think when we talk about that experience when we're solving those PYQs, I think batch life guys definitely can relate with me. So all those PYQs that they always try to solve always seems familiar to them. It is another matter whether they are able to recall at the correct moment or not. That's another matter of debate. But right, Prashant, am I clear here? That's another matter of debate, whether you are able to recall at the right moment or not. Okay, so what happened to this slide? Just for that understand, just wait for a second. Now, when we let us talk a little bit about members of debate. Huge debate. Definitely we can agree upon that. The Dream says Askal champion. She's, I think, busy somewhere. She's busy somewhere. That's why she's not here. She informed also in the group that she will be able to join us sooner or later. Now, proceeding further, let us quickly discuss about what is language. Now, apart from discussing, just hold on for a second. Sir. Now, so sorry for a little. Now, let's say when we talk about this language, now what is language? Now, when we try to define this language, the language can be defined in millions of ways. Now, when we talk about this particular language, for example, English, and definition can be just hold on for a second. Now, am I audible? Yeah. Now, so when we talk about this English, this language, Yeah, very good, Rani. The origin of language is known as glottogony. Yeah, very good. Glottogony. Yeah. So when we talk about this English as a language, in that way we can define a language in that particular context. So the definition of language, what language is actually, differs always on the ground of, let's say, the kind of context that we try apply to. Okay, first one. Now the next one that is, we can say here that whenever we talk about a language, we all know that we have so many definitions that are surrounding this definition. For example, let's say Sozo defined it, Noam Chomsky defined it. Yeah, one favorite question from Chomsky, let's say, for example, that he gave the theory of universal grammar. Now these all portions, for example, like how this language itself is constructed out of a set of rules. Now those set of rules are, let's say, आज मुझे कुछ नहीं आता है, आज मैं सिर्फ सीखूंगी. Yeah, definitely geography, you can learn from these lectures. Genesis of language. Okay, now let us quickly come back to this. Kindly listen. Yeah, when you will listen, you definitely will understand that what this particular topic is, from where these questions can be asked. Yeah, so please try to focus on that. We will definitely try to cover all these topics in a, let's say, in a brief way. We have so much to cover in upcoming 3 classes. Yeah, so today's first class, tomorrow will be the second class on language pedagogy, and day after tomorrow we will have rapid fire along with the conclusion. Yeah, and after that we are going to start with literary terms, devices and movements on YouTube channel. So stay tuned. If you are new here, if you are if you attend regularly these classes, then definitely you won't miss that. Yeah. So when we talk about this language, we all know that we have a kind of restricted definition of language when we talk in the sense of, let's say, when we talk within this constricted boundary of how an individual performs that particular action. Yeah, so when we try to define it in English, let's say when we talk about this language, we always talk in terms of how language can be defined in numerous ways. Now when we talk about this language in the sense of those grammar, let's say English as a language, because we are constricted also within the definitions of, let's say, how English emerged and how also English develops within the individual. So we have in English in India, we have seen a kind of history. Now we are in this unit trying to understand that how English also emerged in the contemporary world and how English emerges as a language, let's say, on a continual basis within this contemporary world. Yeah, so this language is a set of, what is it? It is a finite or infinite, let's say, for example, sentences, each finite in length and constructed out of a finite set of elements. So whenever we talk about any kind of language, we always talk in terms of what are the basic rules that governs particular language, the language that is the matter of issue there. Now when we talk about this language, we all know that a language is made up of small units. Now when we talk about the smallest unit, when we talk about, let's say, this verbal language or spoken sound, we talk about this phoneme. This phoneme is the smallest meaningful unit of let's say of English language that can alter the meaning of any particular sentence. That is called a phoneme. Now this phoneme, for example, let's say if I write this word here, read, R-E-A-D. Yeah, so when I write this word here, read, we can say that this read is made up of 4, R-E-A-D. Yeah, so this is the smallest unit which helps us to understand this particular word that is here. So this particular word that is here is called morpheme. Yeah, morpheme is the single smallest unit that we have. Also you can refer it with another sentence. Now when we try to understand it, morpheme and lexeme, there is a little bit of difference there. Now what is lexeme? And everyone, what is lexeme? Anyone? What is lexeme? Now phoneme is the smallest uttered unit of sound. Let me quickly write it down here, okay, neatly and cleanly. Yeah. So when we talk about this first one, that is phoneme here, P-H-O-N-E-M-E. This phoneme is the smallest, let's say, smallest part or smallest part of a language. smallest part of language which can alter the meaning. Yeah? Alter the meaning. Now you need to add here the smallest part of speech sound or speech language. Yeah, so you need to use your speech sound, or nothing is visible on the blackboard. Why? Everyone is also the same happening with you all? बिना नेट वाले भी पीएचडी एंट्रेंस एग्जाम फॉर्म भर सकते हैं? या डेफिनेटली भर सकते हैं, आपको सेट एग्जामिनेशन में अप्लाई करना होगा। नेट के लिए नेट में अप्लाई करने के, आपको पीएचडी में अप्लाई करने के लिए मिनिमम एलिजिबिलिटी आपके लिए क्या है? नेट है। अगर नेट नहीं, आप सेट के लिए अप्लाई करें। डेफिनेटली सेट के लिए हमारा पेपर 1 का भी क्लास होता है मॉर्निंग में 9 to 11:30। यू कैन ऑल्सो ज्वाइन देयर। क्या दिख रहा है? ओके। प्रशांत सेज नो। व्हाई इज दिस हैपनिंग? Okay, sir, I do reconnect. Now, so when we talk about this phoneme is the smallest part of speech language which can alter the meaning of any smallest word, okay, or sentence, for example. Okay, let's say, for example, if I write here R-E-A-D, yeah? R-E-A-D, this read is made up of R plus E plus A plus D. Okay, so this is called a phoneme. When you utter this, this is called a phoneme. Okay, now next word is morpheme. Morpheme means smallest unit of a word in written language, yeah, which can alter the meaning. Okay, smallest part of, let's say, smallest part of written form. Yeah, this is called morpheme. It should be meaningful. Okay, so there are two kinds here, morpheme. One is free morpheme and the second one is bound morpheme. Okay, they can ask you these questions, so kindly take a screenshot or kindly do write notes here. Yeah? So when we talk about this morpheme, there are two categories, free morpheme and bound morpheme. Now what is free morpheme? This free morpheme, let's say if I write here read word, yeah, so this read word here can be written as readable, R-E-A-D-A-B-L-E. Okay, and the next one is what you can write here, unread, yeah, U-N-R-E-A-D, let's say. Okay, so when you will notice here this able here, okay, and this un here, they are, let's say, when we talk about suffix and prefix, we all know about it. Yeah, suffix used after the words, suffix before the words. Prefix before the word, suffix after. Yeah. So when you will notice here, this able here has an independent meaning. Yeah, A-B-L-E, readable can be written as read plus able. Yeah. So this able has an independent existence. So any word which has an independent existence, yeah, is called free morpheme. Yeah, this is the smallest, smallest meaningful unit that is there. This is called the morpheme. Okay, so able is morpheme here, read also is a morpheme here. Both are two different words, but when they are combined together to form this word readable, they become a complete morpheme, a single unit which are describing the word in other sense. Yeah? So this able is independent, so this is called free morpheme. But bound morpheme which do not have meaning on their own. Let's say, for example, when I write here unread, okay, unreadable. Now this able is free morpheme, but this un is here bound morpheme. Reason being, because this un will meaning when and only when it will be bounded with any one morpheme that is there, which has a separate existence, which has a meaningful existence. Yeah, like happy has one and unhappy has two syllable. Yeah, very good, Prashant. So this happy is, we can say here, when I talk about this happiness, yeah, when I talk about this word happiness here, so this happy and ness, so this ness here is bound morpheme because it is not having a free existence. In readable, able is the free morpheme because it has its own meaning when separated from that one particular morpheme. Yeah, so this able and this un here will be called lexeme. Yeah, so which do not have a meaning on their own. This is called lexeme. So this is the difference between the lexeme and the morpheme. Morpheme will always has a meaningful, always will have a meaningful existence, but a lexeme can have and cannot have, based on this one here, that is free morpheme and the bound morpheme. Clear, everyone? Understood? These questions are very much prominent in your examination, so I would request you to kindly note, take a note of this or take a screenshot. Yeah. Sir, good evening. I am following your classes, mostly recorded classes. I wanted to ask if your video will be enough for GATE preparation. Now we also have okay, lexeme का फिर से बता दे. Okay, अभी बताते रानू. First of all, that Hajarika, the one comment that she has posted here. Now she says that will it be enough for GATE examination. Now we have a separate video. Me and Manika ma'am has definitely actually made that separate video where we talked about what is GATE examination, how you need to prepare or set your mindset when we talk about this clearing GATE examination. Kindly do have a look on that video. You will definitely be answered. Yeah. So I would request you kindly go through that video. You will find that video in IFAS channel, yeah, in that video section. Okay. Now the title of that video is NET and GATE. Will there be more difficulty in this GATE examination when we talk about, or let's say when we compare UGC NET and GATE examination? So you can also watch that video. Now Rani, lexeme. Now see, when we talk about this phoneme and morpheme, let us quickly understand it one more time. Now this phoneme is, we can say, the smallest speech sound, the smallest part of a speech sound which has the ability to change the meaning of any word, any morpheme, any syntactic structure. For example, when I said read, okay, R-E-A-D, there are 4 phoneme here. When I said reader lay, okay, so it means that L-E-Y changed the entire pronunciation of that particular word. So that is called the phoneme. Okay, so the smallest unit of a speech sound which can alter the meaning, that is called phoneme. Now when we talk about this morpheme here, morpheme is the smallest unit in our in our written structure, in our book, in our text. Now that meaningful structure have two parts. Number one, that is free morpheme and the bound morpheme. Free morpheme are, let's say for example, when I say readable, R-E-A-D-A-B-L-E, that read plus able. Now able has a separate existence of its own and read also has their separate existence. But when they are combined, they combine in order to form a complete morpheme, that is readable. But they have a separate existence, so this is called the free morpheme. Now the free morpheme here is able because able is suffix here. Now when we talk about this able, now when I say here, let's say unbound, U-N-B-O-U-N-D, unbound. This bound word is used with, let's say, prefix un. Now this unbound word, in unbound word, un is not having a separate existence. For example, when I write here unbound, this un is not having a separate existence of its own. It will only have a meaning when it will be attached with this particular morpheme. That's why they are called the bound morpheme. Yeah, understood now, Rani? So this bound morpheme or the free morpheme are also, let's say for example, this un here. This un will be called as the lexeme here. Okay, this lexeme will have an independent existence or cannot have. Clear, everyone? Rani, understood now? Clear? Okay. Now let us quickly move on. Now when you will notice this particular word that is written here, that is sign is equals to signifier plus signified, and that is arbitrary. Now we all know that when we talk about this language as a sign system, we have so many linguists who talked about language as a symbol. Now we also have theory surrounding it, for example like poo-poo theory, bao-bao theory, yo-he-yo theory. So these kind of theories tried to explain that how English as a language emerged out of, let's say, from imitations of those sounds, let's say for example chirping, or in other words onomatopoeia. Now other theory also says, for example yo-he-yo theory, which says that language emerged out of all those voices that people let's say that people uttered when they were engaged in a physical labor. So ye he yo theory states these kind of notions. Now again we have poo-poo theory. Now again we have so many theory which also argues about that that whenever there was a need of music, people invented language out of there. So these kind of theories that are surrounding around this sign is equals to signifier plus signified. But the most famous one that are available to us is Sauzur's sign signifier is equals to signified. Now what is this particular term that we are actually referring to here? Now whenever we talk about a language, we are talking within those boundary of how any particular morpheme is always directed towards symbolizing an abstract phenomenon. Yeah, let's say for example like arbitrariness. Now when I say this kind of abstract phenomena, I mean to say here that a kind of postmodernist theory, for example like say Baudrillard, who talked about how language functions as a simulacra. It means a representation of all those imitations that are out there, and in fact all those imitations or all those pictures that are there itself is a copy of all those reality that is there. So within all those senses, we have seen that how these notions of sign always referring towards something other, which also differentiates it with all other kind of languages, with all other kind of morpheme that is there. For example, when I say cat, we also is trying to differ and defer at the same time. For example, like in Derridian terms, that cat, when I say this word cat, it will refer to a fur animal with 4 legs, 1 tail and 2 eyes, 2 ears, very sharp claws, very much brilliant and very sharp. Now this, while trying to attribute some kind of qualities through a word to that particular animal, we are also referring to, let's say that this particular animal is not within similar with all those kind of bat, mat, rat that is out there. So language always serves as a two function, let's say referring at the same time and also at the same time differentiating from all other objects that are also present in that particular space. Yeah, so on that notion, Sauzur talked about that whenever we try to attach a particular signifier, let's say when I say this word cat here, it will kind of produce an image in our mind. Now that image is called the signified. So this signified will always resemble with the kind of object it will refer to. In other words, the sign. And that's how this language developed. That's how this language always evolved out of all these spaces, all those cultural practices that are there. Now Rani says the natural theory, bao-bao theory, yeah, very good. Poo-poo theory. Yeah, so these kind of theory always tried to explain that how English first of all originated. Yeah, from where it originated. Some argues from imitations of all those sounds. Number one, some of them also argued that not only sound but also from the physical labor of a person. We have for example like famous theory of, and now who coined this famous theory? Tabula rasa. Quickly comment here. This theory of tabula rasa. This theory of tabula rasa is associated with one writer. What is the name of that writer? Quickly comment here. With whom this concept of tabula rasa is associated with? Quickly, very, very famous. Quickly, don't know? Prashant, this tabula rasa, mind as a blank slate. Mind as a blank slate. Okay, so we have a theory of language which also argues that whenever human being, born, it never carries itself something with it, let's say, for example, let's say from innate qualities, but it also tries to understand it with the surrounding that he's being exposed to. Yeah, so this John Locke is the person who talked about this tabula rasa. Okay, John Locke. Now, origin of species, let us quickly talk about that. Origin of species, who wrote Origin of Species, who talked about it? Who talked about Darwin? Yeah, very good. So Charles Darwin talked about this Origin of Species. Now, what is the year? Origin of Species. These are very important details. Kindly do not forget for your examination. Now, Origin of Species, in which year it was published? Okay. 1859. Very good. Yeah, Darwin, 1859, the famous theory of origin of species. Yeah, John Locke, tabula rasa, or we can say here this blank slate. Okay, like a blank slate, human mind, is early at the very beginning, but later on, like when we try to write something on a slate, we try to learn it, then we try to again erase it if there is any kind of mistake. And that's how John Locke also argues within those terms of all those languages that a person learned through, let's say, trial and error method. The kind of, let's say, bachpan mein bahut maar padti hai na, so that is called a trial and error method. Something you can be punished for, let's say, if you go through that one. Yeah, so these kind of theories that are there when we try to relate with this tabula rasa, John Locke. Yeah, so this particular paragraph, quickly have a look or take a screenshot. We are gonna move further now in a minute. Yeah, quickly take a screenshot so that we can move further. What is morpheme? Morpheme is the smallest meaningful unit in a language. For example, when I say this word here, cat, this cat is a morpheme. Okay, now phoneme is the smallest unit. For example, when I write this cat, C-A-T, is C plus A plus T is phoneme here. And lexeme is what we have discussed about. It's the basic unit of a language consisting of one or several words, the elements of which separately do not convey the meaning of the whole. The lexeme play can take many forms. For example, play, plays, playing, and played. Yeah, so these kind of details you cannot forget. Please take a screenshot now, and please always keep these details with you. Shall we move forward now? Quickly say yes or no. Shall we move forward now? Yeah. So let us quickly move forward and let's talk about this theory. Very important from NetGRA perspective, also from GATE examination. Yeah. So when we talk about, let's say, when we talk about this word, this universal grammar, we are talking within those sense of, let's say, that some kind of innate characteristics, possessed by an individual. Yeah? Possessed by an individual by virtue of him being a human. Yeah, or let's say not only human but also living beings. Yeah, living beings, when I say about this is also applicable to animals as well. Yeah, so these animals also kind of acquire language through this process that is called the universal grammar. Now Chomsky argued that language is a kind of structure which predates birth. For example, it is transferred to a person by virtue of being born as a human being or as a living being. Now this universal grammar, when Chomsky talked about it, he also tried to define that what is language. And when he tried to understand the structure of a language, what he came to notice that all these structures, all these morphemes or all these phonemes that are there, all those, let's say, syntactic structure that are there, they are always combined according to the rules that it has. And now he also tried to compare the study that was done by Lacan, let's say for example the psychological study that we often see in Lacanian analysis of mirror stage and the symbolic stage, that how a children always try to associate himself with the object that is in front of him, and the kind of behavior he's been exposed when he try to act physically. Let's say for example that if a try by mistake put his hand on a hot pan, now by his mistake he will understand that he will not do these things from now on. Now Chomsky also argued that these kind of language are coming out of all those structure that is already there, and that already that is there is always predates, or we can say is happening through, or let's say this mutation or the genesis through which a human being always the genesis of a human being. So these kind of argument that Chomsky's argued, and later on he tried to understand all those structure, and he find out that there is a kind of structure through which any syntax with the help of all those morphemes that are out there is designed. For example, let's say when I talk about this universal grammar, now when I write this here that Ram is a boy, yeah, Ram is a boy, and when I write again a second sentence, that is Ram boy is a. Now we all know that first sentence is not first sentence is grammatically correct, but second one is not, but we can understand the meaning of these sentences. Reason being, because we already know there is a kind of structure, and through that structure we are able to comprehend whatsoever is being exposed to us. Yeah, so in that sense they also understand. Let's say for example, when we will talk about that B.F. Skinner's behavioral psychology, or when we'll talk about Stephen Cressen's method, there we will see that how input method or how screen method is very much helpful when we talk about acquisition of language. Yeah, so this acquisition, number one, is very much different from this acquisition of language is very much different from this learning of language. Now when I talk about this acquisition, we are referring to very much similar that Cora. Understand this word Cora? Cora defined by Butler, let's say as a moment, or let's say as a phase in a human being where he always try to relate himself with the kind of language that mother possessed at the first place. Yeah, just hold on for a second. Okay, so when we talk about this acquisition, we are talking in sense of, let's say, that how language is acquired, and we all know that language is acquired always through, let's say, the exposition to the native culture, and from here we have a kind of another study which also demands that how Pidgin, Creole, let's say how register, what dialect is, and how all these languages, for example, let's say when you are living with a Punjabi person or when you are living with a Marathi person, you are not able to understand them at the earlier phases, but later on you all develop a common ground through which you can understand each other. So how language can also be developed for a temporal purpose, and how we can also define language as a kind of spatial temporal with all those contexts that it always carries itself with. So we can understand how this language evolved. Number one, we are going to also see that how this teaching of language, okay, that teaching of language in a certain way means when we talk about this IELTS exam, when we talk about this TOEFL exam, how we need to prepare for that particular examination. So these kind of study, let's say for example that grammar translation method, for example like audiolingual method, what are these methods, why we need to study it, that are the concern of this particular unit. So we will understand that unit in that particular way only. Yeah, so we will talk about that later on. So when we talk about this universal grammar, Chomsky said that whatsoever language a person acquires in his lifetime always starts from that structure that is always there within the mind of that individual, and from there, through that mirror stage, through that symbolic stage, he always try to relate himself with a broader phenomena, with a broader culture that is there. How language also is concerned, very much connected with all the social structure, along with all those, when we talk about those cultural dimensions, how culture also predates language and how language predates culture. These two terms are always complementary to each other, because if there is a language, there is a culture. If there is a culture, definitely there is a language. So both kind of we can say here that these two terms are inseparable. So in that notion, we will try to discuss so much theory, so much methods, and the famous method, that is grammar translation method, from where questions have been asked so many times. So on that note, human being interact and carry on most of the activities through language. Very good, Rani. So this is language. On that ground, we try to define it always. So I hope all of you must be now able to relate what is this unit, why we are gonna need to cover this. So on that note, I think any question, if there is any question, kindly you can also post on a query here. Otherwise, we will again meet tomorrow, and we will start from, let's say, we have covered about this one, like what is listening, speaking, reading, and writing. The 4 methods, you also understand about these concepts in your, let's say, paper 1. That how language is complete or not. So this is the interface. If you are anyone new here, you can go through here. Also, if you are not a registered candidate, kindly download the app. Go through this, let's say UGC Net English. There you will find a free material. You can also download the PDF of this session on, let's say that we are conducting on YouTube. You will get a PDF, and those PDF also carries along with it all those explanations that are there. And let's say if it impresses you, kindly also have a thought on joining, let's say, IFAS channel. So we will again meet tomorrow to our next session, and we are going to start with the theories of language acquisition. So we are going to start with here, and we're going to start with this behaviorism by B.F. Skinner, also known by the name this classical conditioning. So these questions are very much frequent in your paper 1, or we can say here in your paper 2. So never try to, never dare to skip these details here. So join tomorrow, same time, 4 p.m. here, YouTube, and we are going to start from here. So on that note, I'm going to end today's session here. Please do take care, happy learning, and see you tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining.